Hi, I'm Judith Arnold, the author of Safe Harbor, a romance novel about friendship, loss, and the healing power of love set on the beautiful island of Block Island off the southern coast of New England. And Safe Harbor has just been released as an audiobook, available at audible.com, and it was narrated by the very talented voice artist Tom Dheere, who is right here with me. Say hi.
Hello.
Tom and I thought it would be fun to tell you a little about how Safe Harbor became an audiobook. So Tom, why don't we start by having you tell us how one becomes a voice artist?
Okay. Well, there's no one way to become a voice artist. There's many different paths into the voiceover industry. Some people come from a theater background, like myself. Some come from a film or television background. Some come from a radio background. A lot of DJs become voice talents. I personally, like I said, started my voice career as a stage actor. I went to Montclair State in Montclair for my degree, got my classical training from the National Shakespeare Conservatory in Manhattan. And then not long after that, I was hanging out with my mom, and she was reading through an issue of New Jersey Monthly, and she was looking at the back where it had classifieds and want ads, and she said, what's voiceover? And I was like, I don't know, you talk for money, I guess, which 20 years later turns out to be exactly the right answer. And she said, you've got a good voice. There's a coach nearby. You should try this out. So I went into the coach and I got a diagnostic, and then I took private lessons for 6 months. And then I went to a recording studio in the area, and that's where I got my demo recorded. And that's how it began. That was 1995. And
Wow.
as it turns out, the studio that I got the demo recorded in is the studio where I recorded Safe Harbor.
So you go to a studio, you have a producer you work with?
For this particular production, which we got together through ACX, which is the Audible audiobook casting site. When I got hired to do this by you, I am the producer. So I did the whole production by myself. I used the engineer at the studio, and they recorded it and edited it, mastered it, processed it, and uploaded it to the ACX website, which then you proofread it, and then you sent me the retakes, and then I went back to studio, did the retakes, and then that went off to Audible, and then they put it on the website. So yeah, that's the whole process.
Pretty amazing how this can all be done just through air and space.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So what is the hardest thing? Before you start, do you read the whole book first, or you just jump in? I mean.
Good question. For fiction, you have to read it the whole way through, because you need to, first you need to understand what the story is, what the arc of the story is. You need to know all the characters, and you have to get to know them and figure out, their age, their gender, their background, if they have any accents. I had a friend of mine who narrated a 7-hour audiobook, and he didn't find out until the last paragraph that the main character had a Canuck accent. So yes, especially for fiction, you want to read it the whole way through. For nonfiction audiobooks, I try to read it the whole way through if I can. If I don't have time, sometimes there's a pressing date. Usually it's not a big deal because there's just one voice and no characters per se. But for fiction, it's critical that you read the whole thing through and prepare for it like you would any other acting role.
Do you think that doing the dialogue is the hard part because you have to switch from voice to voice, or?
Actually, for me, it's the opposite. The dialogue is the easier part. Even switching back from male to female or old to young or one accent to the other accent. I've noticed over the years when I do audiobooks in the studio, I tend to make less mistakes when I'm doing the dialogue, and I tend to make more mistakes when I'm doing the narration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say that what convinced me to hire you was how you read the dialogue. I sent a sample, a passage from the book for you to audition, and a lot of other people I auditioned also, but I really liked the way you were able to put a different intonation on each voice. So you didn't even need the constant dialogue tags, what we call dialogue tags, of he said, she said. Mm-hmm. It became clear who was talking just by, and I guess that's your acting training at work there.
That's a big part of my theater training, being able to take in the information and adapt and adjust quickly. That's so I have to thank my theater training for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, on your blog, Tom has a blog that he posts on his website, www.tomdheere.com. That's Dheere. We should
Thank you.
Make sure people spell it correctly, as his slogan is, the H is silent, but he is not. Anyway, on his blog, while he was working on Safe Harbor, he posted what I thought was a very funny post about reading the love scenes in the book. Was this the first time you ever did a novel that had graphic sex in it, or?
Well, my first audiobook was a Danielle Steele novel, Amazing Grace, and there were frank exchanges. There was a decent amount of profanity, which I'm used to. I've done that before in other audiobooks. But the sex scenes themselves, it was sort of when you're watching the Hallmark or Lifetime or Oxygen channel, and the lovers are here and they kiss, and then they kind of lay down, and you see the fire in the background, or the rain, and then the next thing you see, they're making breakfast. That was the nature of the intimate scenes in the Danielle Steele one. So Safe Harbor was the most, I wouldn't even call it graphic. I don't think it was graphic at all. I would use the term steamy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the steamiest stuff I've ever done, but it was actually a lot of fun.
Well, good. You did a great job on it. I thought, when some writers feel very awkward when they're writing those scenes too. I don't, just because it's just another scene to me, like an argument scene or an action scene or anything else.
Right.
But you want it to be effective, and you don't want it to sound silly in an audio edition. And you did a great job. I was kind of surprised when I saw your post. I thought, oh well, he sure covered his discomfort very well when he was reading it. Hope you found them as sexy to read as my readers do. So what is the hardest thing about narrating a book, do you think?
That's a good question. The hardest thing to keep in mind is every audiobook narrator has their own tendencies and styles and preferences. On a technical level, I tend to speak quickly, especially when I like what I'm reading, when I'm getting engaged. So I have a tendency to speed up the narration, and then the engineer, or if there's a director there, is saying, whoa, slow down, let's go back a paragraph, you're speeding up. So on a technical level, that's usually the hardest part for me, because I speak quickly. So, and like I said, when I get excited, I tend to, so on a non-technical level, what's the hardest thing? Since I had the theater training, trying to be true to the character and all that it's always a challenge. I mean, it's acting. Acting is not simple. Nobody thinks they can just pick up a violin and start playing it, but everybody thinks that they can be a voice actor or a stage actor or whatever. But there's a lot of technique in things involved. I guess the hardest part is to try to keep in mind the challenge of reconciling the technical aspect, the speed, the accents, with serving the story and serving the listener at the same time. I mean, when you're in the booth for hours at a time, it's difficult to remember that there's someone that's on the other end of this. Hopefully thousands of people that will be reading, that will be listening to it and taking it in and going through the journey that you are trying to take them on. So it's always a challenge reconciling the technical with the aesthetic. But hopefully we pulled it off on this one.
I think we did a good job. I think you did a fabulous job. Once again, it's Safe Harbor, available at audible.com. When I send, if you want to learn more information about it, of course, come visit my website, www.juditharnold.com. And when I send my newsletter to my readers, I usually sign it off by saying happy reading, but I guess in this case I'm going to say happy listening. I hope you all try the book. I hope you like it. I hope you have as much fun with it as I had writing it and Tom had recording it. So thank you very much. And thank you, Tom.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.